So as everyone is at home at the moment, I wanted to give some advice and guidance on how you can train more effectively, especially at blank bale, and see how you can do this better. So seeing as everyone is probably at home at the moment, I wanted to give some great tips specifically about blank bale shooting and how you can improve your practice in this area, make it a bit more enjoyable, you know, a little bit less monotonous, and also a bit more effective as well, because it's very easy to kind of just go through the motions with blank bale and just shoot arrows for the sake of shooting arrows. So I've seen a lot of videos about home training that have said, you know, bow training, blank bale practice, all that kind of stuff, and that's great, but the tricky thing is keeping that variety, keeping it interesting, and also managing the intensity. So I'm going to look at those things in a different video, but in this video I'm going to look at blank bale specifically and exactly what you can do to make it better. So if you are lucky enough to be able to shoot blank bale, that's amazing and great in this time, but just shooting maybe 100 arrows or 200 arrows or whatever it is, just shooting that and doing that for the repetition alone is only going to get you a bit of muscle memory and obviously the physical conditioning. You won't improve your shot if you just go out and just shoot arrows for the sake of shooting arrows, you know, at blank bale. So it's important to remember that, and also to do something so that you can actually improve your technique and work on things. So the first step here, and this is actually going to make it might not sound like it, but this is going to make it more interesting as well, is to have a clear goal for what you're doing at blank bale. So for example, rather than just saying, you know, I'm going to go outside and shoot 100 arrows today, that's kind of a surefire way of, you know, just going out, counting down the arrows, getting to 100 and then being like, okay, I'm done now. So that was my 100 arrows. In that scenario, you've only really got the physical conditioning from shooting those 100 arrows, and you've obviously built up some muscle memory, but you haven't had a clear purpose and a clear, you know, vision for what you're doing in that session. Whereas if you pick a specific area to focus on and then choose a way you're going to measure this, and then finally, if you actually set a challenge in this area, it'll be much more rewarding in the session, and then actually you're going to progress better as well. So let me give you an example. Say I'm working on my bow hand and I want to make sure, so normally I kind of rotate the bow hand a little bit too much counterclockwise, and this part of the hand is on the grip. So that's what I want to work on. Now, the way I'm going to look at this and measure it in this training session at blank bale is using video delay feedback. So I'll put a link below to the app I use. It's a great app. There are loads of different apps available, you know, Android, iPhone, but I would use this app and get feedback on every shot as to whether I've done that shot correctly. And by the way, using video delay feedback is a great way to, you know, improve blank bale and actually make it something where you can really train effectively and take away some of that boredom. If you haven't got any feedback at all, because you've removed the target, obviously, you haven't got any feedback at all, it can be really easy, as I said, just to go through the motions, shoot your arrows, and then finish, and that's it. If you've got the video delay feedback, you can really easily look at a specific area you're working on and try and improve that. So anyway, that was a little aside, but say you're in this example, you're working on the bow hand, you've got the video delay feedback. Now for the challenge part. The challenge here, as an example, I'm going to set myself, I want to do 50 shots where I'm making sure that I get the bow hand as I want. I don't want this part of the hand on the grip. And if I have this part of the hand on the grip, then I have to restart over. And I want to get 50 shots in a row. So that's the challenge. And this, not only is it a good challenge because, you know, it's a technical thing that you're working on and you want to improve, but also it makes it a lot more interesting than just going outside, you know, and just shooting maybe 100 arrows at blank boss with no real aim. So as I said, the first thing here is setting a clear goal and giving yourself a challenge with this goal where you can actually measure it properly. So yeah, video delay feedback, pick a technique area, one technique area, and then set yourself a challenge like that. There are loads of other examples you can do, but I quite like doing the number of shots in a row for something and just working on that over a period of time. Now, the second thing here is about replicating what you're training for. Now, this might seem obvious that, you know, if you're training for 70 meters, that you want to replicate that and do that at blank bale, but a lot of the time, a lot of people don't do this. The first step here is that you have to make sure that you do your full shot cycle and your whole shot in exactly the same way at blank bale as you would at 70 meters or 50 meters, whatever it is, at a target face in competition. If you just go out and just shoot arrows and fling them down for the sake of shooting arrows, that's not the same at all. You're just practicing getting arrows shot quickly. That's pretty much all you're practicing there, and the physical side of things, the physical conditioning. But you have to go through each shot when you're shooting. You have to go through your shot cycle, get the set position, open and raise the bow, get to set up. You have to do everything, go through the shot cycle. And this includes aiming, which you might not, think is necessary at blank bale. But if you have no aiming at all at blank bale, then over time, this has basically eliminated this part of your shot. So there are times when you don't want to aim at blank bale, when you're doing pure technique work and you really want to nail down on something. But for an extended period of time, if you can only shoot blank bale and you are going to do this and then expecting to go to 70 meters and shoot well again when the competition season starts or when you go outdoors, then this is going to be a really hard transition because you haven't been doing this aiming. So you need to have some sort of aiming and do this in your shot cycle, even if it's, because you're close range, you can see the arrow holes in the target. You're aiming at one of the arrow holes. Maybe you can print a scaled target face that you can aim at close range. There are loads of websites where you can, go and find a scaled target face, print it off, stick it to the target, and use your 70 meter sight mark. You aim at the target face, and then the arrows go above it. And that's fine because you don't have to print it off over and over again, and you don't waste paper. It's great. There are loads of other things you can do like that, simple chalk marks, whatever it is, but have some sort of aiming, go through the whole shot, cycle and the process. The other thing is to actually replicate the angle. I can't stress this enough, how often I see, a blank boss setup where the angle of the blank boss is maybe straight or even downwards quite a lot, because often it is hard at home to get the right height of the target. But if there's one thing that you can do to make the transition to 70 meters easier, it is this. Because if you train even for a day with the target low down and you're aiming low down, and then you go to 70 meters, it's going to be incredibly hard, really, really hard, because the angle is one of the most difficult things about long distance shooting. Changes how you have to keep your posture. You have to make sure you keep your posture and you don't lean back. Changes how your shoulder alignment feels. At 70 meters, it's harder to keep your posture. It's harder to keep your alignment. It's harder to execute the same way. So if you remove all of those things and you're shooting just a flat angle, then when you go outside to 70, it's going to be really hard and you're going to wonder what's happened even though you've been training all this time. So do your best to replicate the exact 70 meter angle. There's a website that can, help you calculate this, calculate where you need to aim, that kind of thing. And I'll put the link to that below as well. But you can make sure to have this angle just roughly even, just by looking at the angle of your arrow. So take a video from 3 o'clock, look at the angle of your arrow. Does it look roughly about 70 meters? If the arrow is straight, that's not 70 meters, is it? If it's down, that's definitely not 70 meters. So just get the rough angle and replicate this. This is so important. I can't stress that enough. So that is what I wanted to say on that point. So finally, the third point here is competition simulation. So don't worry, I haven't gone crazy here. I know you might think that you can't do any sort of scoring or that kind of thing at blank bale. And in a normal sense, you can't. But what you can do here is visualization and a scoring system of your own. So let me explain that a bit more. You might be familiar with visualization because you'll imagine what your shot feels like. You'll go through the shot process, see in your mind's eye what you're doing, acknowledge the feelings of how is this going to feel when I'm expanding, how is this going to feel when I release, all that kind of stuff. What you can do is visualize this within your training as well and visualize the scenario. So you can, before you step onto where you're going to shoot, you can visualize and pretend. You can say, okay, I'm at this competition, say it's your national championships. I'm at the national championships. You visualize the field that that's the field that you're going to shoot at. You visualize the wind, the smells that are around you, maybe the smell of fresh cut grass or something. You can smell all that and visualize very vividly where you are. Visualize maybe you've got an opponent in a head-to-head. You visualize this whole scenario. And then as you walk to the shooting line, you visualize, okay, in this head-to-head, I'm against this person. Visualize going onto the shooting line. Visualize going to do your shot, the whole shot process, visualize where the arrow goes, the feedback, maybe you've got a coach there, that kind of thing. You can visualize the whole thing, and in this way you're doing a competition scenario, even though you're just shooting blank bale. So just because you've only got a blank bale at home doesn't mean mentally that you can only do blank bale practice. You can still do competition practice like this and visualize scenarios where, perhaps in a head-to-head, you know that your release sometimes isn't as strong as it could be. So you can visualize doing that scenario, maintaining the release as you want, shooting a good shot, good strong release. Okay, that's good. Going to the next shot, and then just carrying on visualizing this. And this is a great way to use this, blank bale practice a bit more effectively. Now, the other thing that you can do is kind of an exercise you might have heard before, where you would be shooting normally, a target face. You would go to the line, you would shoot your shot, and before the arrow hits the target, you would rate the shot as to where you think it went. So if you shot a good shot, you came up and shot a good shot, you go 10. Before the arrow hits the target, you say, and you think it was a 10, then you say 10, then obviously the arrow hits the target and you look through the scope and check whether you were correct or not. So it's about developing that feel of, that was a good shot, it should be in the middle. Okay, that one is gonna go in the 8, and I felt that. So it's about developing that feel. And you can do exactly this same thing at blank bale, just obviously without the scope. So again, you go through the scenario, you say, okay, I'm gonna go and do a shot and then rate it out of 10. So you do the shot at blank bale, you come up and you shoot 8. Okay, that needs to be better on the release. So, and then the next one, and then you go up and shoot, and then you rate it out of 10. Okay, that was a 9, that one was good. So you carry on, and you can do this. In this way, you can actually do all sorts of things with scoring around, more kind of competition simulation, setting yourself even a score challenge and seeing if you can get to that. Now, obviously the key here is being honest with yourself as to, the score of each arrow. But as long as you do that and you're true with that, then the overall score is obviously going to take care of itself. So if you combine these two elements that I was talking about, the visualization and the scoring, you can effectively simulate an entire competition around that kind of thing. So you can say, okay, today I want to see if I can shoot a 320 at 70 meters, and I'm going to go out and rate each shot as I would think it would land at 70 meters, see if I can get to 320. Really see how I can do and visualize this in a competition situation. So you visualize it, that field that I was talking about, that national champs field, you go to the line, you then shoot the shot, you visualize where it's going to go, you rate the shot, as you did it, you rate the shot out of 10, then you can tally up the scores, and then you can see whether you met that challenge that you set yourself, whether you didn't, and all that kind of stuff. So it's really great tool, and it transforms completely blank bale shooting from just monotonous throwing arrows down just because you have no other option, to actually a really useful, entertaining and much more exciting, challenging activity that you can do. You can improve your technique, as I said before, you can do competition simulation, you can do your whole shot cycle with you aiming, and it's a much more complete, training activity than you would normally do. So that's really good to do. So that's been an overview of how you can make your blank bale work at home much better, more interesting, more effective, and also progress faster and have a bit more fun. I hope you found that video useful. As always, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll also put the links to social media down below, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.